When news like this first breaks, the only thing you really care about is whether the player is okay, and that's where we have to start here. Keion White suffered a gunshot wound to his ankle. He was taken into surgery, and the most important update the 49ers have shared is that the surgery was successful. That alone takes this from a terrifying unknown into a situation where there's at least some breathing room. The team hasn't put a timetable on his return, and that's not surprising at all. When something this serious happens, especially off the field, teams tend to be extremely careful with their wording. What we do know is that the injury was not life-threatening, and the early expectation internally is that he should be able to make a full recovery. That matters not just for football, but for Keion White as a person first. From a football standpoint, there's also no immediate rush. The off-season program doesn't begin until later, which gives White time to focus fully on healing, rehab, and physical therapy without the pressure of needing to rush back onto the field. The 49ers keeping things open-ended publicly doesn't mean they're pessimistic. If anything, it usually means they want doctors and trainers to control the timeline, not headlines or outside speculation. If you're a fan, you'd rather hear less now and get good news later than the other way around. Let me ask you this real quick and drop your answer in the comments. When you first heard Keion White had been shot, was your initial reaction fear for his health or concern about what this could mean for the season? Be honest, because I think most fans felt a mix of both. And if you're relieved hearing that the surgery was successful, hit the like button. It helps this video reach more Niners fans who are trying to make sense of this situation. It's also worth remembering that at this point, the 49ers are treating Keion White as a victim. Early reports made it sound like he may have been hit by a stray bullet, and while later details complicated the picture, the team's stance has remained focused on his recovery. They've acknowledged the incident, confirmed the surgery, and avoided fueling speculation. That's exactly what you'd expect from an organization trying to protect both a player and an ongoing investigation. If you want continued updates as more information comes out, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are turned on. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers here, and every single one helps us keep covering stories like this in real time without noise or exaggeration. Now, while the health update is encouraging, the details surrounding how this happened are where things start to get uncomfortable and complicated. In the next part, we're going to walk through the timeline of that night, where this took place, what police found at the scene, and why this story quickly became bigger than just an injury update. Once you get past the initial relief about Keion White's condition, the next question becomes how something like this even happened. According to police reports and follow-up reporting, this incident took place very early in the morning, around 4 a.m., when officers responded to a call about a shooting at a location on Mission Street in San Francisco. When police arrived, they found Keion White suffering from a gunshot wound to his lower leg, specifically near the ankle. First responders treated him on the scene before transporting him to a local hospital, where he later underwent surgery. From the very beginning, this was treated as a serious criminal investigation, not just a medical emergency. As officers began securing the scene, they found multiple shell casings, including both 9mm and .45 caliber casings. That detail alone tells you how chaotic this situation was. Multiple calibers suggest more than just a single random discharge and immediately raised red flags for investigators. Police also collected surveillance footage from inside and around the building and recovered an abandoned cell phone, all of which are now part of the evidence being reviewed. As of now, no suspect has been arrested, but authorities have made it clear they are working multiple leads and continuing to analyze everything they've gathered. One of the more uncomfortable details in the police report describes what officers saw when they entered the building. People were leaving the establishment, money was scattered across the floor, and adult entertainers were present. It paints a picture of a late-night private event that had completely unraveled. This matters because it gives context to why things escalated so quickly and why law enforcement is being extremely careful with what they release publicly. The more moving parts there are, the longer it takes to piece everything together accurately. Police did attempt to question Kian White at the scene and later, asking who shot him. According to the report, White was uncooperative and did not identify a shooter. That's a key detail, and it's one that will likely continue to be discussed as this investigation moves forward. It doesn't automatically imply wrongdoing, but it does complicate the process for law enforcement, especially in an environment where there were many people present and conflicting accounts of what happened. Let me pause here and ask you something. Do you think surveillance footage is ultimately going to be what breaks this case open? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you appreciate this channel sticking to verified facts instead of rumors, make sure you're subscribed. We're working toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support makes it possible to keep covering stories like this the right way. What's clear is that this wasn't a random incident on the street. This was a contained environment with witnesses, cameras, and evidence, which is why police are confident enough to say they have leads, even without an arrest yet. And that brings us to the part of the story that really turned heads and pushed this beyond a typical police report: the reported involvement of a well-known rapper and his entourage. That connection adds another layer to this situation, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Reply with C when you're ready to continue. This story took on a completely different level of attention once reporting revealed that an Atlanta-based rapper and his entourage were involved in the events leading up to the shooting. According to witness statements included in police reports, the rapper, who had been performing in San Francisco earlier that night, was at the same venue where Kian White was hosting a private event. Witnesses told police that members of the rapper's entourage attempted to enter White's private gathering. That's where things reportedly began to unravel. Based on those accounts, an argument broke out between Kian White and the rapper. One witness said they went upstairs to seek help from management, and while they were gone, they heard 2 gunshots. When they returned, White had been shot in the lower leg. No witness was able to clearly identify who fired the weapon, which is a major reason why this case has not moved quickly toward an arrest. That lack of a clear shooter, combined with multiple people involved, makes cases like this incredibly difficult to solve. This detail also changed how police viewed the incident. Early on, there was some indication that White may have been struck by a stray bullet. Later clarification from law enforcement acknowledged that while White is still considered a victim, he was involved in the verbal altercation that preceded the shooting. That distinction matters. It doesn't mean he deserved what happened, but it does explain why investigators are treating this as a situation that escalated rather than a random act of violence. Another layer that can't be ignored is White's reported lack of cooperation when police asked who shot him. From a legal and investigative standpoint, that slows everything down. There are many reasons someone might choose not to cooperate immediately, especially in a chaotic, high-stress situation, but it does mean police have to rely even more heavily on surveillance footage, physical evidence, and third-party witnesses. This is also why the organization has been so measured in its public statements. Anything said prematurely could interfere with an active investigation. I'm curious where you land on this. Does knowing there was an argument beforehand change how you view the situation, or does it not move the needle for you at all? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, take a second to like this video and subscribe. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and that support helps us keep covering tough stories with context instead of speculation. For the 49ers, this is a reminder that off-field situations can become headlines in an instant, even when no one intends for things to go that far. The hope now is that accountability, recovery, and clarity all come sooner rather than later. And as serious as this incident is, the biggest question for fans remains how this affects Kian White and the team moving forward. That's exactly where we'll wrap things up next. When you zoom out and bring everything back to football, the first thing that stands out is how fortunate the outcome could have been much worse. Keion White's injury was serious, but it was not life-threatening, and all indications right now point toward a full recovery. From what's being communicated, the 49ers appear optimistic, even if they're not saying that directly. With the off-season timeline working in his favor, there's a real chance that this incident ends up being a setback rather than something that derails his career or his role with the team. From a roster standpoint, the 49ers will continue to operate as if White is part of their plans moving forward. There's no indication that his long-term availability is in jeopardy, and assuming his rehab progresses normally, there's reason to believe he can get back into football shape and be ready to contribute. That said, the team will also be paying close attention to the off-field side of this. Organizations don't just evaluate talent. They evaluate judgment, environments, and risk, especially when incidents like this make headlines. This isn't the first time the NFL has had to grapple with players being victims of gun violence, and unfortunately, it likely won't be the last. What matters now is how this situation is handled by everyone involved. Keion White remains a victim of a shooting, and that shouldn't get lost as details continue to emerge. At the same time, clarity from the investigation will be important both for accountability and closure. I want to hear from you on this one. Do you believe Keion White will be fully ready to go when the season arrives? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you've stuck with this video all the way through, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button. We're working toward 2,000 subscribers here at Niners News, and your support goes a long way in helping us keep delivering thoughtful, up-to-date coverage for 49ers fans. As more information comes out from law enforcement or the team, we'll continue to break it down and keep the focus where it belongs, on the facts, the recovery, and what it means for the 49ers moving forward. Let me know below if you want continued updates on this situation, and stay locked in, because this story isn't finished yet.